Hi, this is Dave with Market Trading Concepts, closing out the week for Friday, June the 22nd. I'm recording this video on Saturday, June the 23rd. Interesting action in the markets this week. Before we jump into that, just a quick reminder, these videos, this ongoing series of videos and this video today as well, is for educational purposes only. It is not in any way, shape, or form meant to provide any kind of advice with respect to taking any positions or acting on this with money. Use these videos at your own risk, and please read the disclaimer carefully at the beginning of the video. So jumping into this week, what we're looking at on the Dow futures, the daily chart of the Dow futures. I use the Dow futures as a proxy for the indexes in general. This is the one that I tend to watch. So we're looking at this level here at 12,800 as the major resistance. We hit this level numerous times, and you can see as we couldn't get through this level, what ended up happening was we sold off from that level right back down into key support. So key support here was, in my opinion, 12,521. We came right down there, and you can see the 21 period moving average was converging on this level here on Thursday, this past Thursday, the 21st, I guess it would be. And basically what you had was this situation here where it came into the 21 period moving average at this key support level, and then it bounced. It slipped through it a little bit, but ultimately it held, and it just bounced slightly from that level. So now what you have is, you have a move out of this range, right? You have a move out of this range, which was kind of like the dead zone. And once you broke above it, you hit resistance, 12,800, and then you couldn't get through that on multiple days, so you came right back down and you tested the major support at the breakout level of 12,521. So this is fairly normal with the stock index futures. They're just not, they're more in reversion to the mean mode, in my opinion. They're not just ripping higher like you would see in a momentum type of situation. So then what you had at the end of the day, and this is kind of where where you would expect the rubber to kind of meet the road here. I'm just going to zoom in. You've got a level here where I've drawn also fibs from this high to low. Okay, so we've got a couple of levels coming together here. So you've got this high up here. You've got this low down here. Drawing the fibs from the high to the low, you have a 50% retracement just above our key level at just above 521 at 558. And then you have a 61.8% retracement around 12,712 level. So what you had here was this level holding, and you had a retracement back down, and ultimately it closed at 562, just above the 558 and the 521 level. So this is where you'd kind of expect the rubber to meet the road. But what it actually did was it closed more right at a line in the sand. This is kind of like, okay, we're holding on to the buy side of the market here, with one finger. So, the market, let's say, is on the edge of the cliff, holding on to the buy side here with one finger. There's the finger. It's not a middle finger. It's, an index finger. And basically, this is kind of like a line in the sand. So that's not a very good drawing, but this is kind of a line in the sand. So you would expect better action on the close of a Friday. So basically what we have is a lot of indecision going into next week, and we're just looking at this thinking, okay, we closed here. We really need to see what happens on Monday and Tuesday of next week to see, are we going to hold this zone and push higher out of it, or are we going to fail this zone and push lower? So I'm not really interested personally in making any swing trading bets either way. I'm just recognizing that these are really key levels, and that these are really line in the sand levels, and we closed right at them. So that kind of tells me that the market's not sure exactly what it wants to do or where it wants to go, and that's kind of where we're at this week in the Dow futures, in my opinion. So let's take a look at a couple of the other indices and see exactly what they're telling us. Okay, if we look at the Dow futures again, before we jump to the other indices, here on the weekly chart you can see we've just kind of come up to resistance at 12,800. We formed a Darvis box. Here on the weekly chart with the low at the low of this sell-off just below 12,000 when we sold off the other week. The daily chart is really not telling us too much, except that we broke out of the top of this and then we came right back down to 21 EMA support. The MACDs rolled over to the high side. The trending indicators rolled over to the high side, but we're still below the zero line on the MACD. So this isn't really telling us a whole heck of a lot. Let's take a look at the S&P futures, see what they're telling us. Okay, so a little bit different here. The difference, really the only difference being on, I'll just expand out the daily chart here, looks much the same as the Dow future, but it fired a signal on the Darvis squeeze according to the rules that I have set up for the Darvis squeeze. So you can see here that you had a squeeze in play, you had a Darvis box, broke out of the top of the box when we were early into the squeeze firing. So this signal will fire when you're in a squeeze or just early into the squeeze firing, but you have the same situation on the MACD and on the trending indicator. So this is printing a potential target of one width of the move of this box, which would kind of bring us right back into the highs if it follows through. At this point in time, it's a signal, but we're really at the line in the sand here, so it really looks like a potential signal signaling that we may want to move higher. That said, I would wait for a little bit more confirmation. I would like to see some strength Monday or Tuesday of next week, and we're really closing out the week at the line in the sand. I mean, it's kind of risky to do something like that. I'm just kind of sitting back and watching it unfold. If we take a look then at the let's see here. If we take a look here at the NASDAQ futures, you have kind of the same situation as the S&P then, where it did fire a signal as well, and it looks like we have a breaking of this downtrend line. So this is very much the same as the NASDAQ futures, where you have a Darvis squeeze printing in here, and it broke out and it pulled back to support and closed kind of at its line in the sand. So the NASDAQ futures on the daily chart look much the same as the S&P future in terms of it firing an initial signal here on this Darvis squeeze indicator. So if we take a look now at the, let's take a quick look at the transports. So the transports are kind of telling the same story as the S&P and the NASDAQ futures. If you look at this, we had the same situation here where, we had a Darvis squeeze fire here, as you can see from this indicator, and it's printing a target somewhere up around here if you project the Darvis box on a one-to-one basis higher. But it just did the same thing. It broke out and it pulled right back down to support on the daily chart. And if you look, the indicators are kind of in the same position in terms of, the MACD crossed to the high side, but it's testing the zero line here. The trending indicator rolled to the high side. The weekly charts look much the same. The weekly chart on the transport index is in a squeeze now. This is interesting, and it's testing its zero line on the MACD. So this will be interesting to see what unfolds. Now let's take a quick look at the VIX and see what the VIX is telling us. So the VIX on the daily chart, the VIX on the daily chart fired a short Darvis squeeze short signal. So you would expect long signals on the the stock indexes, which is basically what we're having here. So the interesting thing here, at least on the S&P and the Dow, or not the Dow future, the S&P and the NASDAQ future, what you can see here is you have a lower low in place, sorry, a lower high in place here, and then it fired this signal with potential to follow through to this level. Now I say potential because we really need to see what unfolds next week. As I mentioned many times already in this video, we're really just at the line in the sand, and closing out a week at the line in the sand, I think doesn't really make sense to look at initiating any positions, and it probably makes a little bit more sense just to be cautious here, in my opinion. As individual traders, of course, we're not giving advice, so you can do whatever you want, but that's just my opinion here. Where, line in the sand, even though we have signals here, need to see some follow through going into next week and maybe a little bit more confirmation. So that's what I have there for the stock index futures. I'm going to take a quick look at maybe the key currencies. Let's look at the dollar index. The dollar index is showing that we're in a squeeze with a potential breakout situation on the daily chart. We did break this Darvis box while in a squeeze. But we were really early on, and then it just kind of rolled right back up into these levels. So that's not really telling us a heck of a lot. If you look at the weekly chart, we're still kind of holding support in here as well. So that's not really telling us a whole heck of a lot. If we look at the Euro future, take a look at the Euro futures and see what that's telling us. Well, the Euro futures also fired. On the weekly chart, we'd been mentioning that it looked like this signal had fired, and it is, it met its target. It slipped a little bit below it, but we weren't really interested on the Euro short around these levels here on the weekly chart, 125.25. Because we could get a potential bounce from there, and that's what it's looked like has happened here. We've got we formed another Darvis box on the daily chart. Let me just expand out the daily chart quickly, and now we've got a potential reversal signal here. We broke this downtrend line. We've put in what looks like a higher low here on the daily chart, where we tested the trend line here, found some support, put in a higher low, and then we're pushing through the top of this Darvis box, firing this is what I call a Darvis squeeze reversal signal. So you can see we're still below the zero line here on the MACD. This is still net negative, but it's a potential reversal signal, and it's showing a potential target up around these levels here. That said, it broke out, it pulled back. You would really need to see it hold some of these levels and ultimately this low and push into this level. So that kind of bodes well for looking to see if we'll see strength, because I do believe the Euro and the stock index futures are fairly correlated, because they both move inverse. From our observations, they both move inverse the US dollar. So it'll be interesting to watch the Euro and watch the stock index futures, all of the the sisters, the Dow, the NASDAQ, the S&P, and even the Russell, even though I don't really track the Russell too much, if at all, and just see if we're going to see some signs of strength going into next week. So that's all I really have there is, I'm just interested in watching what the Euro and the stock index futures, I can't even speak today. So the Euro and the stock index futures, what they're going to do going into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, see if we get any signs of strength. And then I'll be looking at, I'll be looking to see if they're going to hold those key levels and possibly push higher into, some of these levels up above, which are, basically retesting previous major resistance levels, or retesting, and the stock index futures, especially the Dow, retesting its previous highs. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Although it's too early at this point in time to tell. If we hold support, that's basically what I'll be looking for. If we fail support, well, then that's a whole other scenario altogether. So that's all I have this week. We have a meetup tomorrow, Sunday the 24th at 11 o'clock. We'll be continuing on the educational and networking kind of series, looking at some basic technical analysis techniques, more, just concepts, not specific trade setups, but just concepts, indicators, and just covering off on some basic concepts. So we're at part 4 in this series. We look forward to seeing you all there. We understand that we're getting into the summer months, and getting into the summer months, people are starting to take holidays. They have things to do, with the family. So the numbers are dropping off a little bit, and we'll assess for the upcoming meetup if we're actually just going to take 1 or 2 meetup sessions off for the summer holidays. So we'll keep you informed of that. I hope this video helps. Have a fantastic weekend, and we will see you at the meetup tomorrow, or we will see you at the next video update. Have a great weekend.